Hello, Mrs. Hillard, I presume?
Yes, I'm Miranda Hillard.
Euphigenia Doubtfire.
Oh,
It was a run by fruiting. That line, delivered by a man in a latex mask and a floral dress, became one of the most quoted moments of the 90s. Mrs. Doubtfire hit theaters in 1993 and turned Robin Williams into America's favorite Scottish nanny. The premise was ridiculous. A divorced dad disguises himself as a 60-year-old British housekeeper just to see his kids. But somehow it worked. Williams brought manic energy, Sally Field brought exhausted realism, and Pierce Brosnan showed up as the boyfriend everyone wanted to throw fruit at. The movie made $441 million on a $25 million budget and became the second highest grossing film of 1993, losing only to Dinosaurs. It won the Oscar for Best Makeup and launched 1,000 Halloween costumes. But the real story isn't what you saw on screen. It's what happened behind the cameras, inside a makeup chair that felt like a torture device, and on a set where the costume literally melted off Williams' face. Today we're counting down 15 weird facts about Mrs. Doubtfire, from Williams cooking inside a vacuum-sealed costume to the moment set lights melted icing off his face. These are the stories that didn't make it into the DVD extras. Now, before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the movies that raised us. And stick around for number 1, because it involves hundreds of hours of Robin Williams material locked in a warehouse that might never see daylight. Now, let's get started with number 15. Number 15. Robin Williams felt like cooked inside a vacuum-sealed costume. Playing Mrs. Doubtfire wasn't just acting, it was endurance training. The makeup took 4 hours to apply every morning before filming could start. That's 240 minutes of sitting completely still, while a team of artists built an entirely different person on top of Williams's face. But the real torture started after they finished. Oscar-winning makeup artist V. Neal later said Williams was what she called a sweater. He perspired constantly, so much that every single latex piece had to be completely overlapped and sealed to his face. Otherwise, the makeup would blow out from the moisture. And then there was the bodysuit, the padding, the costume, all of it trapping heat. Williams described the experience to interviewers with his typical manic energy, but the description was brutal. When you're encased like that, it's like being vacuum-sealed in plastic. You tend to cook. At a certain point, if it's hot, the makeup starts to blow out. Williams said you start to eventually look like House of Wax, miming his face melting and oozing down. You have to know when to stop and protect the makeup and light it a certain way. The physical toll was real. By the time they discussed a sequel years later, Williams had one specific request for director Chris Columbus. "Do I have to be in the suit as much?" Columbus later said Williams described wearing the costume as like running a marathon every day he filmed. Williams was older by then. The physical demands had left their mark. The sequel script existed. Williams just wanted fewer scenes in the full getup. Then Williams passed away in 2014, and the sequel died with him. Number 14. Set lights melted the icing off Williams' face, and he improvised the entire scene. There's a scene where Mrs. Doubtfire serves tea to Mrs. Sellner, the social worker inspecting Daniel's apartment. Watch closely, and you'll see icing literally melting off Williams's face and dripping into the teacup. It looks like a planned gag, a deliberate joke about Mrs. Doubtfire's cake face coming apart. It wasn't planned at all. The heat from the set lights melted the icing on Williams' face during filming. Nobody expected it. The makeup department didn't account for how hot those lights would get when focused on one spot for multiple takes. And suddenly, there's icing running down Robin Williams' cheek. Most actors would have called cut, asked for a touch-up, reset the scene. Williams kept going. He improvised the bulk of that scene, turning a production mishap into one of the movie's funniest moments. The reactions from the actress playing Mrs. Sellner are genuine. She's watching icing melt off this supposed elderly woman's face in real time. Columbus kept the cameras rolling because that's what you did with Robin Williams. You captured the chaos. You documented the genius happening in front of you. You didn't interrupt. That scene became iconic. Audiences assumed it was a brilliant bit of physical comedy planned from the script. Film students probably analyzed the symbolism of the melting facade. But it was just hot lights, melting makeup, and an actor so committed to the bit that he turned a technical failure into comedy gold. Number 13. Williams filmed the cooking scene in a flammable costume inches from open flames. The scene where Mrs. Doubtfire attempts to cook dinner is controlled chaos. The character burns the hollandaise sauce, drops a pot of potatoes on the floor, destroys another pot, and in the movie, the costume catches fire. Mrs. Doubtfire leans over the stove and the padding ignites. The character panics, beats out the flames, and frantically calls for delivery. Here's the thing. That scene wasn't CGI. That wasn't a stunt double. That was Robin Williams, covered in foam latex prosthetics, wearing a padded bodysuit, encased in layers of fabric and makeup, working inches from actual open flames on a hot stove. The entire costume was flammable. One spark in the wrong place, and Williams could have gone up like a candle. But the scene required him to lean over burners, work around fire, and sell the physical comedy of an elderly woman completely losing control of a kitchen. The makeup team and stunt coordinators had to choreograph every movement, where Williams stood, how close he got to the flames, how quickly he could move if something went wrong, all while making it look like a spontaneous disaster. Oscar-winning makeup artist V. Neal said later that the Mrs. Doubtfire job was easily the most difficult she'd ever had. Part of that difficulty was managing fire safety, while Williams performed physical comedy in a costume that could ignite. Williams made it through filming without serious burns. But that cooking scene represents the moment where the movie's physical comedy came closest to actual danger. They got the shot. Williams stayed safe, and audiences laughed, completely unaware they were watching something that required extensive safety planning. Number 12. The improvisation got so out of control, they shot 2 million feet of film. Robin Williams walked onto the Mrs. Doubtfire set with a deal. Director Chris Columbus later revealed Williams told him early on, "Give me 3 or 4 scripted takes, then let me play." By play, Williams meant improvise until the film ran out. And Columbus said yes. Here's the thing. Williams didn't just riff a little. He improvised in every single scene. Columbus had to shoot the entire movie with 4 cameras running simultaneously just to capture the other actors' genuine reactions. Nobody knew what Williams was going to say next, so they needed cameras on everyone's faces at all times. The result was chaos measured in film stock. According to Columbus, they shot almost 2 million feet of film on that picture. For context, most movies shoot maybe 200,000 to 300,000 feet. Mrs. Doubtfire used 10 times that amount because Williams couldn't stop creating material. On several occasions, Williams improvised so much dialogue that they literally used up all the film loaded into the cameras. Production had to stop while crew members reloaded, and Williams would just keep going. Columbus later admitted he pitied the poor script supervisor who had to handwrite everything Williams said because the actor changed it every single take. 30 years later, Columbus revealed there are roughly 972 boxes of footage sitting in a warehouse somewhere. Footage from the movie, outtakes, behind-the-scenes clips, all of it just sitting there. He wants to hire an editor to go through it all and make a documentary about Williams's creative process. That's 2 million feet of film. Most of it has never been seen. Number 11. Williams wrote a letter after Lisa Jakub got expelled from school. Lisa Jakub played Lydia, the oldest Hillard daughter. She was 15 and attending 9th grade at a Canadian high school when production began. She'd be gone for 4 months, so they set up a system where she'd mail her schoolwork back and forth since there was no internet in 1993. A couple months into filming, her school sent a note. "This isn't working for us anymore. Don't come back." They expelled her for taking time off to film a Hollywood movie. Jakub was devastated. She'd just lost the one normal thing in her unusual life. Robin Williams saw that she was upset and asked what was wrong. When she explained, Williams did what Robin Williams apparently just did. He wrote a letter to her principal. The letter requested the school reconsider their decision. Williams argued that Jakub was simply trying to pursue her education and her career at the same time, and asked if they could please support her in this. It was heartfelt, personal, and written by one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. The principal received the letter. The principal framed the letter. The principal hung it in the office. And the principal still didn't ask Jakub to come back. Number 10. The studio fired the writer, then hired her back when the reunion didn't work. Hollywood loves a reunion. The divorced couple gets back together. the family moves into one house again. Everyone lives happily ever after. Mrs. Doubtfire's original script followed that formula. Daniel and Miranda reconcile at the end, and the family reunites. Director Chris Columbus said that was the biggest problem with the script. The studio desperately wanted that ending. Executives, agents, and managers all insisted audiences would demand Daniel and Miranda get back together, but Robin Williams pushed back hard. Williams had gone through his own divorce in 1988 from his wife of 10 years. He had 2 kids with her and knew exactly how hard it was to navigate that situation. Williams argued that giving kids a reunion ending could actually be harmful. If children of divorce watched the movie and saw the parents get back together, they might think their own parents would do the same. Williams told one interviewer that reconciliation is the one thing most psychiatrists will tell you is perpetuated by children of divorce who are in therapy. And it's the one thing that professionals don't want to perpetuate. The studio reportedly fired the screenwriter for keeping them divorced. They brought in another writer to pen the reunion, but when attempts at creating that neat ending failed, they rehired the original writer and went with the separated but co-parenting conclusion. Williams, Columbus, and producer Marcia Garces Williams formed what Columbus called a strong trio about keeping them apart. They were adamant with the studio. The ending we got shows Daniel and Miranda remaining divorced but on better terms, with Daniel getting more access to his kids. Real life, not fantasy, and it's the reason the movie still resonates with children of divorce 30 years later. Number 9, Sally Field was going through a real divorce while filming her fake divorce. Those argument scenes between Miranda and Daniel hit harder than most movie fights. There's real pain in Sally Field's delivery when she tells Williams she wants out of the marriage. Turns out there was a reason for that rawness. At the time of filming, Sally Field was actually going through a divorce herself with producer Alan Greisman. She was living the exact emotional reality her character was experiencing. Every scene where Miranda struggles with guilt, exhaustion, and the decision to end her marriage, Field was pulling from her own life happening in real time. Field later said the role was almost therapeutic in a way, getting to process those feelings through Miranda while figuring out her own situation off camera. But it also meant that some of the most emotionally brutal scenes in the movie weren't just acting. They were real grief wearing a costume. The irony deepens when you realize Robin Williams would later go through his own divorce. The movie was about a father desperate to stay connected to his kids through a separation. Years later, Williams would navigate that exact situation in his personal life. But here's what's remarkable about Field's performance. Despite everything she was going through, despite the emotional weight she was carrying, she stayed professional. Pierce Brosnan later said Williams would go wildly off script, improvising for dozens of takes. Field sat through all of it, delivering her lines perfectly every time. She was a professional handling a divorce, playing a character going through a divorce, while Robin Williams turned every scene into controlled chaos around her, until one moment late in production. But we'll get to that. Number 8, Pierce Brosnan finally made Sally Field break with a silly arm noise. Sally Field prided herself on not breaking during Williams's improvisation. She later told an interviewer that at the beginning of production, she made a deal with Williams. "I'm a professional, Robin. Just keep going. If you do it, I promise you, I won't laugh." And she didn't. Williams would go off on wild tangents, invent new accents, reference other movies, do voices. Field sat through all of it stone-faced, delivering her lines perfectly every time. Williams tried everything. He quoted other films. He made callbacks to his stand-up routines. He invented entire characters on the spot. Field never cracked. Then came the restaurant scene near the end of filming. They'd been around that dinner table forever, shooting coverage for what felt like days. Williams had exhausted every trick in his arsenal trying to get Field to break. Nothing worked. Pierce Brosnan, playing the refined and sophisticated Stu Dunmire, made a childish sound effect with his arm. Not even a joke, not a line, just a noise. The kind of silly sound you'd expect from a middle schooler, not James Bond. Sally Field fell down laughing. They had to cut for the day. Production basically stopped because Field couldn't compose herself. Brosnan, the guy who would later play one of the most sophisticated characters in cinema history, defeated Robin Williams' comedic genius with a simple sound. Number 7. Chuck Jones animated 5 minutes of cartoon. They used 1 minute. The opening sequence of Mrs. Doubtfire shows Williams' character, Daniel, recording voices for an animated show called Pudgy and Grunge. You see maybe a minute of animation featuring a parakeet and a cat. That minute represents a fraction of what actually exists. Legendary Warner Brothers director Chuck Jones, the man behind Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, supervised the animation for that sequence. His team included top animators like Bill Littlejohn and Tom Ray, plus younger talent like Eric Goldberg, who was coincidentally also animating Robin Williams' voice for another project at the same time, The Genie in Aladdin. Jones and his crew didn't animate 1 minute. They animated 5 full minutes of Pudgy and Grunge material, 5 minutes of fully realized cartoon featuring detailed backgrounds, complete character animation, and Williams' voice work. The movie used 1 minute. The opening scene required just enough animation to establish Daniel as a voice actor, show his talent, and set up his moral stance when he quits over inappropriate content. Everything else Jones created sat on a shelf. The unused footage finally appeared years later as a bonus feature on the Mrs. Doubtfire DVD. 3 complete versions exist: animated pencil tests, the final full-color version, and an unused version with alternate backgrounds. Jones himself had mixed feelings about the project, according to interviews on the DVD extras. Taking on a cat and bird duo after decades of creating iconic original characters felt like familiar territory, but not necessarily his own. Still, the animation bears his signature style. Sharp timing, exaggerated physics, characters with personality beyond their designs, all compressed into material most audiences never saw. Number 6, Pierce Brosnan never actually worked with Robin Williams. Pierce Brosnan plays Stu Dunmire, Miranda's sophisticated new boyfriend, who represents everything Daniel isn't. Stable, refined, not covered in frosting. But according to Brosnan, he never really worked with Robin Williams at all. "I really never worked with Robin Williams," Brosnan recalled years later while rewatching the film. "I only worked with Mrs. Doubtfire." On Brosnan's very first day on set in San Francisco, they asked if he wanted to meet Robin. Brosnan said yes, absolutely. They took him to the makeup trailer. Williams was sitting there in a Hawaiian shirt, his hairy arms hanging out, hairy legs visible, completely male from the neck down, but wearing the complete Mrs. Doubtfire head. The character started immediately. "Oh, Pierce, you're so handsome. Come here, give us a kiss," Williams said in the Scottish accent. Then he'd drop into his regular voice. "Hey, baby, what's happening?" Then back to Doubtfire, then back to Williams. "He jumped all over the place," Brosnan said. That set the tone for their entire working relationship. Brosnan never got the normal Robin Williams. He got this manic energy constantly shifting between an elderly British woman and a middle-aged American man, sometimes mid-sentence. In the restaurant scene, Williams went wildly off-script when the kids weren't on set. "There's reams of footage of me just kind of falling around on the floor with laughter," Brosnan said. Number 5. The house at 2640 Steiner Street became a memorial after Williams died. The Victorian house where the Hillard family lived wasn't a set. It's a real house at 2640 Steiner Street in San Francisco's Pacific Heights neighborhood, and it's been dealing with movie fans for over 30 years. During filming, the production used only the exterior. All interior scenes were shot in a Bay Area warehouse converted for soundstage use because the actual house was too small for cameras and crew. But that exterior became one of the most recognizable locations in 90s cinema. After the movie's release, the address became an instant tourist attraction. Fans would make pilgrimages to stand where Mrs. Doubtfire stood, take photos on the steps, and generally make life interesting for whoever owned the property at the time. In 2016, the house sold for over $4 million. Real estate listings didn't hide the connection. The Mrs. Doubtfire house was part of the pitch. Then, in 2014, Robin Williams passed away. The house transformed overnight from tourist stop to impromptu memorial. Hundreds of fans left flowers, letters, cards, and handwritten notes on the doorstep. People who'd grown up with the movie, people who'd been helped through their own family situations by watching it, all showed up to leave tributes. The outpouring was so significant that the house became not just a filming location, but an actual cultural landmark. San Francisco later renamed the Waldo Tunnel the Robin Williams Tunnel in 2015, and created Robin Williams Meadow in Golden Gate Park in 2018. IB's number 4, Blake Lively was told she'd audition with Williams' twin brother. Mara Wilson beat out hundreds of kids for the role of Natalie Hillard, the youngest daughter, but it almost went to another actress who'd later become famous, Blake Lively. Lively was 5 years old and already a huge Robin Williams fan. Her father knew she'd be too nervous auditioning with someone she idolized, so he told her a strategic lie. She'd be reading with Williams' twin brother, not Robin himself. Problem solved. The plan would have worked perfectly if casting hadn't introduced them properly. Lively walked into the audition room feeling calm. Her dad's story had worked. She was ready to read with this twin brother guy. Then someone from casting said, "Blake, this is Robin Williams." Lively froze. The jig was up. Her dad had lied. This was actually Robin Williams. And now she had to audition for him while processing betrayal and starstruck panic simultaneously. She later described the audition as horrible. Completely blew it. Couldn't focus, couldn't perform, just stood there realizing her father had tricked her. And she was in a room with someone she'd watched on screen. The role went to Mara Wilson, whose look fit better with the actors playing her older siblings anyway. But imagine that alternate universe. Blake Lively as Natalie Hillard. Gossip Girl's Serena van der Woodsen started as a Hillard kid who got knocked out of contention because someone said Williams' actual name in a casting room. Number 3, Sally Field and Robin Williams bonded over The Legend of Zelda. After a day of Williams trying to make Field break character through sheer comedic force, after hours of improvisation and chaos and Williams bouncing off walls with energy, you'd think they'd want nothing to do with each other off set. You'd be wrong. Sally Field and Robin Williams became genuine friends during production, and their friendship was built on the most 90s foundation possible: Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda. Both actors were obsessed with the game. According to Field, Williams would come over to her house after filming specifically to play Zelda together. Two acclaimed dramatic actors, both going through divorces, both starring in this emotionally complex comedy about family separation, sitting on a couch playing video games about saving Princess Zelda and collecting heart containers. Field said those gaming sessions with Williams created some of her most cherished memories of him. It wasn't about the movie. It wasn't about the performance. It was just two people who happened to love the same video game, finding common ground away from cameras and divorce proceedings. Williams named his daughter Zelda after the princess in the game, which tells you exactly how deep that obsession ran. The man loved the franchise so much he branded his child with it. Number 2, Tim Allen turned down both lead roles and went to play Santa instead. Before Robin Williams became Mrs. Doubtfire, the studio offered the role to Tim Allen. Actually, they offered Allen 2 roles, Daniel Hillard and Stu Dunmire. Allen could have played either the dad or the boyfriend. He passed on both. This was peak Tim Allen territory. Home Improvement had made him a household name. He was the obvious choice for a family comedy about a dad trying to stay connected to his kids. The studio wanted him. Allen said no thanks. Here's the thing. Allen turned down Mrs. Doubtfire in 1993, then immediately played Santa Claus in The Santa Claus in 1994. He dodged one movie about a man in a transformative costume, then signed up for another movie about a man in a transformative costume. The difference was, Mrs. Doubtfire required playing a woman. The Santa Claus just required putting on weight and a beard. Allen later said nothing about regretting the choice. The Santa Claus became a massive franchise for him. 3 movies, decades of holiday TV airings, and permanent association with Christmas. Not a bad trade. But imagine the alternate timeline. Tim Allen as Mrs. Doubtfire. Would he have brought the same manic improvisation? Would there be 972 boxes of footage in a warehouse? Would he have bonded with Sally Field over video games? Probably not. Allen's comedy style is more structured, more controlled. Williams brought chaos that required 4 cameras and 2 million feet of film. The movie works because Williams couldn't be contained. Allen would have hit his marks and gone home on time. Number 1, there's enough footage for a different version of this movie, but you'll never see it. Here's the fact that'll haunt every Mrs. Doubtfire fan. There's another version of this movie that exists, and you're not allowed to watch it. Director Chris Columbus admitted that Williams improvised so much material, they could easily make a different cut of the entire film. That's 972 boxes of footage, much of it Williams going wildly off script when the kids weren't on set. Pierce Brosnan described Williams improvising extensively during their scenes together. Sally Field sat through take after take of material that never made the final film. All of that exists somewhere. Columbus wants to hire an editor to comb through everything and make a documentary about Williams' process. He told an interviewer, "We want to show Robin's process. There is something special and magical about how he went about his work, and I think it would be fun to delve into it. But here's the problem. That footage belongs to Fox and Disney now. Making it public means deciding what's appropriate to release of a performer who can no longer consent to how his image is used. Williams' family has been protective of his legacy. His daughter has spoken publicly about being disturbed by unauthorized uses of her father. So those 2 million feet of film all sit in a warehouse somewhere, waiting, maybe forever. Columbus has been very clear. There will never be a Mrs. Doubtfire sequel without Williams. The sequel script sits in a drawer. The footage sits in boxes, both frozen in time, waiting for someone to decide if the world gets to see what Robin Williams created when the cameras kept rolling. And there you have it. 15 weird facts about Mrs. Doubtfire that you probably didn't know. Which facts surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Mrs. Doubtfire, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies and shows that raised us. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.